Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us again today. Well, I've got a quick video for you today here, and this is a response to a surprising number of requests to talk about pistol optics. This is one of those, add-ons that some people think very highly of. Some people think it's the dumbest thing in the world. Well, we're going to talk about the pros and cons and how that might play out in several different types of carry guns, and we're going to do that in just a minute. Alright, once again, thanks for being with us. We appreciate you joining us today. If this is your first time coming to the channel, or if you've been watching our videos and you just haven't had a chance to do so, and you like our content, please consider subscribing. You can locate that subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your computer screen, or if you're on a mobile device, you can just scroll down below the video and hit the subscribe button that way. It's a simple thing that helps out a whole lot, and we really appreciate it. So, pistol optics. I've made it clear from a lot of videos that you may have seen, but I mentioned on many occasions that my preference is to keep as many things clear, not add too many things to my carry gun, and that includes optics, and that includes lights and lasers and all those other kinds of things. Now, I'm not saying they don't have a place, but I generally don't do a lot of it. But there are some situations where I think you can do it and it not be as obtrusive and as much of a pain as you might think. So I wanted to start with this. This is a Glock 19 MOS, Gen 4. And, this is a pistol that I have, several of anyway, just because it's a very, very obviously popular carry gun. It's a good, all-around pistol. It's probably why it's the most popular, handgun pretty much for self-defense and for home defense. The Glock 19 MOS has, of course, this optics ready plate, and it'll work with a number of different red dot type sights. I have a Vortex Viper on this one. I've got a couple others that'll fit this. I just happen to have this Viper sitting around. This Viper's not a bad sight, all things considered. When you turn it on, you can see the dot there in the background, okay? And it simply adjusts by, there's a up button here and a down button here, and you simply go up for brightness, down to lower the brightness. You hold the down button for a few seconds to turn it off, and of course you press the up button to turn it on. So it's a nice setup. You can leave it on, all the time if you want to. And if you're going to use this as a optic on a self-defense gun, that's probably not a bad idea. The thing to keep in mind, though, of course, if you do that, your battery life isn't going to be near as long. But these use, the cheaper 2032 lithium batteries anyway. So it's not a big deal to keep putting batteries inside this sight if you need to. Now, it's a pretty slim fit. The only thing that actually sticks out, you'll see that the controls actually stick out from the width of the slide just a little bit. So, is this an ideal setup? Well, not completely. You probably have already noticed I just have the standard sights on this pistol, because I did this just for us to have a look here. And obviously, you would not ever want to operate a carry gun with just a red dot on it. You want to change your sights out with taller sights in order to co-witness that with the optic. Now, in a lot of cases, a lot of firearms come with taller sights. If you have a suppressor ready gun, they're going to come with taller sights, of course, for the suppressor. Well, in a lot of cases, that's all you need. In this case, that's all it would need. If it had some suppressor height sights on the firearm like this, then you'd be able to do the same thing they did on the Glock here, but you'd have a tall enough sight to co-witness with the optic. Now, to me, I think that the very fact that, Glock made this specifically for adding optics and did not put taller sights on it, I think was a major oversight by Glock. But obviously, accessories for Glock, including sights, are pretty easy to get, and they're pretty reasonably priced, so you can solve that pretty easy if you want to. One of the other considerations that you're going to have if you carry a firearm like this, let's say you're already used to carrying the Glock 19. Well, how's it going to change things as far as your holster and other accessories if you add the optic? Well, depending on the holster that you choose, maybe not at all, and I'll give you an example. If I'm carrying outside the waistband with a Glock 19, I'm almost always using a Blackhawk because, this goes right inside your belt line here, and then this whole piece obviously is on the outside. And then your firearm is secured just like that. Now, using this kind of holster, as you can see, the optic is completely clear of the holster. So this isn't going to get in the way of anything, obviously. It's kind of a smooth, rounded off sight anyway. This is going to be outside the waistband if you have your shirt over it. If that's what you're doing, I don't hardly see where that's going to be a problem. So that's one holster type that obviously is very good for this. Another holster that I use quite a bit for carry guns that is also good for this would be something like a crossbreed Super Tuck, which is what this is, leather and Kydex. And it's kind of the same story. You put the firearm in the holster and there you are. It doesn't interfere with the optic. It's all the way in. Of course, this is a 2-clip leather and Kydex type setup. And everyone, there's lots of different options that you can choose. Alien Gear and tons of other people make really good holsters as well. But I'm finding a lot of these holsters, at least on Glocks, they're not a problem at all as far as getting it in the holster. So you don't need a special holster necessarily. And some you might. But Glock has a lot of good aftermarket support, so it's not really an issue for them. So we've looked at a larger gun. Let's look at something a little bit smaller. So for example, you've got your SIG P365 here. This is a pretty good example since this is a nice tiny gun. And of course this has an optic built into it. Now this has the Romeo Zero optic, which is their optic. And it's not bad. The one thing I do like about this is when you move the firearm, it does come on. You can see the red dot there. It came on with me not having to do anything to it. And I don't dislike that. It does have an on-off button, and it does have a brightness adjust. But since it has the shake-to-wake function, it makes more sense to me to set the dot where I want it. And then if you set the firearm down, after a few minutes it turns itself off. Now obviously if you're carrying this in the holster, your body movement is going to make it turn on from time to time. But as we said before, these use the relatively inexpensive little lithium batteries, and so to me it's not that big a deal to have to change one of those out from time to time. So how does it change the carry for something like this? Well, before we even get into that, you have to ask yourself, so on a gun this size, is this something that you want as far as adding extra, dimension to it? And this is like I've said before, I try to keep my carry guns as small as possible. And if I were carrying this in my pocket, I definitely would want to carry it without the optic. It's got a good high visibility, front sight, and you've got a notched rear sight there, and it's not exactly co-witnessed. It's close, but it's not perfectly co-witnessed at the moment. So this is a pretty good setup as far as having a good sight. Of course, I mentioned your concern would be, well, what about the holster with something like this? Well, I've got several holsters that I carry this in, but my favorite little holster is this little TX4 Victory here. And the holster, I looked at several, and the optic is actually part of what makes this fit this little holster. This holster will fit a number of small guns. I've been pretty impressed with it. But the actual outer housing of the optic is where this stops when it goes in the holster, and it actually puts it exactly where I want it. Now keep in mind, these kind of holsters, just like if you're carrying a sticky holster, there is no hard retention on a holster like this. Basically, this is just giving you a, secure, fairly solid place to secure the firearm. And something like this can be worn either outside the waistband, you got your belt loop here, or it can be inside the waistband, and there's your clip. So if I was carrying this inside the waistband, I could do it with something like this because this doesn't stick out very far past the holster, so it doesn't really add any size. This isn't going to irritate me. The only part of this entire firearm that's really going to, bother you is the edge of the grip here will rub you, and maybe the back of the frame here. Depending on how you have it set, the cant of it. I have this, this is a straight up and down configuration on this type of holster. So this isn't really going to bother me a whole lot. But if you had a holster that had a different kind of fit, you may not get the same results. Now, once again, this isn't a bad setup. It has a good high visibility front sight, and it's got the little notch rear sight. But ideally, I still think that the best setup is having a taller front and rear sight, which I'm definitely going to do on the Glock that I was showing you a little while ago. So of course what the question comes down to is, inevitably, well, do you really need a red dot optic on a carry gun? Well, there's a lot of different opinions about this. I would say this to you. Having used a red dot optic, one of the positives to using one is if you practice with it, you can get to where you can get that red dot where you want it, and you can get some pretty good repeatable performance as far as accuracy. The negative I have found is no matter what kind of red dot it is, if you're trying to acquire the target in a hurry and you're making a lot of jerky hand movements, you may not find that red dot as quickly as you want to. And the problem there, of course, is if you need to use this firearm in a hurry, which as a carry gun, you hope you never have to use it. But if you do, no doubt there's going to be a sense of urgency. And when your fine motor skills go out the window, I don't know if I want to find myself trying to hunt for this dot to get it in the right place before I use the firearm. With practice, I've gotten pretty good at it. But I still think that I would rather rely on a good high visibility sight in the front and rear, that I can just get a good sight picture quickly and repeatably. And that's just for me. But ultimately, you need to do whatever makes you comfortable. I definitely think there's a place for red dot optics on carry guns. There's not necessarily a place on all of my favorite carry guns, but it's definitely something to think about. Alright. Well, that's going to do it for today. We really appreciate you joining us as always. Going to be back very soon for you with another video. So until that time, everyone stay safe and have a great day. Thank you.